Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here with another Friday Reads, Halloween edition. To be honest, I am not feeling very well today. I don't know what's going on, but my chronic illness has been flared up the last 2 weeks. Just bad flu-like aches and exhaustion, and yeah, trying to figure that out, trying to rest a lot. So yesterday I had hoped to do a bonus video. I was going to record a Halloween tag that's been going around. I was really excited about it and I just couldn't do it. Today I was going to do a full October wrap up. I can't do that. But I wanted to at least do my Friday reads. I really enjoy this. I look forward to it every week, and I hope you do too. And besides, it's Halloween. Now, I was a little stuck for what to wear today. I always dress for Halloween, but all of my Halloween-y type clothes that are orange and black or whatever, they're all for cool weather. It's going up to 80 today, maybe a little higher than that. It's insane. So I remembered this old t-shirt. This is vintage, like authentically vintage. This is from 1987, October 1987. I'll show you the whole thing. The Witches' Moonlight Run in New Orleans. So, I had just moved to New Orleans that year in June, graduated from college, got a job with DuPont, and that was my first assignment. I immediately became friends with the man who would eventually be my husband, and also another group of friends who are still our closest friends today. It was amazing living there as a young person, doing all the things. So one of our friends is a runner, and he told us about the Witches' Moonlight Run, so we all agreed to participate. He went out and got animal noses for everyone, and we built our costumes around those. I'll show you a picture. So yeah, so we did the 2-mile fun run for Halloween down Canal Street in New Orleans. And of course, afterward, there was a party well, probably everywhere, but yeah, so that's the story behind the t-shirt. And it is short sleeve, so I'm not roasting in my orange sweater. I hope you have some great plans for Halloween today. Last week, I shared some of the family photos from when our kids were little and we did group costumes. Here are a couple from when they were a little older. One book related, we did the Where's Waldo bunch. And then one year, when they were both teenagers, one of their friends joined us and we did a family rock band. Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites. And one more quick update. We had a wonderful weekend. This has become an annual tradition that I started a few years ago. I rent a lake house, a house on a nearby lake, and we go there, just us and our sons and their girlfriends. And it is just a very relaxing, very chill weekend. There was a lot of reading done, especially by my older son and my younger son's girlfriend. My younger son doesn't enjoy reading. And we just have a wonderful time when we do this. It is super relaxing. And we've really come to appreciate this quiet time together. I was realizing this weekend that I so appreciate the shared history we have with our sons. So fabulous weekend, few picks. In the Halloween spirit, I want to tell you about the last of my October reading. This is why I didn't want to miss this video today, because there are some really great books I wanted to tell you about. I finished this weekend while we were all together. I finished Not Quite a Ghost by Anne Ursu. Anne is a favorite author of mine. She writes middle grade fiction. This is her latest, just out. She sent it to me in the mail, which was a lovely surprise with a beautiful signing on the black paper. So Anne has the same chronic illness I do, the same immune disorder. We've known each other virtually for over 20 years. I've always reviewed her books. She found my chronic illness blog and emailed to ask me some questions. And yeah, we've corresponded on and off for 20 years. But even if I didn't know her, she is a fabulous writer. I love her novels. And in fact, when my son and I read her first book, The Shadow Thieves, which was the beginning of the Cronus trilogy, when I first read that, she hadn't emailed me yet. Just back then, I was reviewing a lot of kids' books for Family Fun magazine. A publisher sent it, and my son and I both loved it. She incorporated our chronic illness into this book, but in a really unique, clever way. So there's a bunch of kids in this book that are suddenly getting sick, like a bunch of kids at the same school, which has happened with this illness. There are sometimes what they call clusters. So, but in the book, it turns out that it's caused by Greek gods in the modern world messing with people. And so the main characters, the protagonists, go in search of the Greek gods to try to straighten things out. And in her book, the door to Hades is through the Mall of America, which I thought was hilarious. She's got a great sense of humor. The Cronus Chronicles is an outstanding fantasy trilogy. I recommend it to anyone, and especially middle grade readers. And she's written many other books since then. I really enjoyed Breadcrumbs. There's another book of hers I reviewed that I can't think of right now. Put that up as well. So this latest one, Not Quite a Ghost, is a creepy, haunted, kind of ghosty story. But at the center of it, here, Anne has taken our illness, which affected my sons. Both had it. One still does. This is a topic near and dear to our hearts. And ME/CFS affects a lot of children and teens, especially in these days of long COVID. Many cases of long COVID are ME/CFS. So Anne has incorporated that into this novel. The main character, Violet, she's going through a lot of changes. Her family has just moved to a new house. It's a blended family. Her father left when she was young, which was very traumatic. She still hasn't really dealt with that. Her stepfather's very kind. He and her mother had another child together, and she has a teenage sister as well. So they had outgrown their old house. They move into a house, but all they can really afford that will fit, that's the right size for them, is an older house. And Violet ends up with the really ugly, creepy attic bedroom for herself on the 3rd floor. She doesn't love the idea of being all alone up there, but her sister's a teenager and definitely doesn't want to share a room with her anymore. So that's kind of the setup here. Also, Violet's just starting middle school. It is still the same school district, but her friends are different this year. And it's middle school. Yeah, all of those issues are pulled into here. New friends, old friends suddenly finding new interests or new friends, all kinds of things like that, starting a new school, all the adjustments of middle school, but also Violet gets very sick at the beginning of the year, and she doesn't get better. And her parents don't know what's wrong. The doctors don't know what's wrong. And in fact, even her own pediatrician, who's known her since she was a baby, is being dismissive and suggesting it may be school avoidance. Everything Anne put into this novel is true to life. I felt seen. If my kids had read it, they would have felt seen. It is very, very accurate as to the experience that kids have when they get MECFS, and adults too, without the school issues. But if that sounds depressing to you, it's not, because Anne brings her fabulous sense of humor into this novel, and you've got the whole spooky plot line. And what's going on in her house kind of echoes and parallels what's going on in Violet's body in a very clever way. Violet is suddenly having to spend a lot of time in this creepy new bedroom in the attic, and she starts to see some things she can't explain. So, supernatural elements. It's creepy, and the climax, when Violet finally faces off against what is in her room, is fabulous. It's suspenseful, it's packed with action, it's funny, but it also deals very realistically with this illness that's a huge problem for children and teens as well as adults. This, I think, it's my favorite of her wonderful novels. I never wanted it to end, but the ending was perfect. I finished reading it during my nap this weekend and went right downstairs and told my older son all about it. He also still has MECFS, so he remembered, the Shadow Thieves and the Cronus Chronicles. He loves Anne's novels as well. So, fabulous book. I highly recommend it for adults as well as middle grade readers. And next, I squeezed in a smaller classic novel for the end of the RIP season, Readers Imbibing Peril, The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. This is classic detective noir, the very first book that features Detective Philip Marlowe, who's a private eye. I gave it to my husband, I think for Father's Day this year. He enjoyed it, moved it to my side of the shelf. I really enjoyed it as well. It's a classic, and I am so glad to have read it. I finished off the RIP season with some great audios as well. I did finish Arsene Lupin versus Herlock Sholmes by Maurice LeBlanc. This is the famous, it's basically two iconic characters from French and British literature come together. It is also a classic, first translated into English in 1910. I talked about it last week, so check that out. I'll link that video down below. It ended the only way it could, with these two icons against each other. The interactions between the two of them in this novel is very interesting. It's a set of interrelated mysteries, and they each, despite being on opposite sides of the law, they each have a respect for each other. So really enjoyed that. If you're not familiar with Lupin, you can also check out the Netflix series. My husband and I have been enjoying that. On the way back from New Jersey, where we spent our lake weekend, my husband and I finished Lady in the Lake by Laura Lippman. We always enjoyed Laura Lippman's novels on audio. They make great road trip books. This was no exception. It involves two murders. It is set in Baltimore, as most of her books are. One of the murders is of a little girl, and the other one is of a Black woman who goes by the name of Cleo. And the main character here is a woman named Maddie. I think she's in her late 30s, maybe 39. She's just left her husband. She's got a teenage son who she's trying to stay close to. She moves into her own apartment. She just wasn't happy in the marriage. And she dreams of a career as a journalist. So she gets a job with one of the newspapers in Baltimore. This takes place in I think it begins in 1966. So it's historical fiction. There's a lot of great historical details here. And although Maddie's mostly doing scut work at the newspaper right now, she dreams of being a real journalist. And it strikes her that the newspaper has all this elaborate coverage over the white girl who was killed, but almost no coverage at all of the black woman who was found dead and has likely been murdered, but the police don't even look into it. So Maddie begins to look into it. So that's the basic plot there. What I loved about this, especially on audio, is there are multiple narrators. It actually begins with being narrated by the lady in the lake, the dead woman. And Maddie's a narrator, of course. But you also get other narrators, including some minor characters, which really helped to fill out the story, to give you multiple perspectives. We both really enjoyed it. Lots of suspense, a very surprising twist at one point that shocked us. We thought we had it all figured out. Yep, like I said, Lippman is always a winner for a road trip, and we both enjoyed this one. And finally, I squeezed in one more audio for the RIP season. As you can tell, there's a theme here. Me trying to fit in as much suspenseful, dark, creepy, mystery type stuff as possible. So my last audio of the month was Nightmare Island by Shakirah Bourne. This takes place in the Caribbean, which was a really interesting setting, and it is based on Caribbean mythology. So this was totally unique for me, something I had never heard of before, super creepy. I didn't mention, this is a middle grade book. Suspense, thriller. The myth that it's based on is the Duin, which are like these creepy, faceless children. So the main character is 12-year-old Serenity. She lives with her younger brother, Peace, and her parents, who, as you can probably tell from the names, are very chill kind of people. Her mom runs yoga classes. Her dad writes books. They're a happy family. And, but Serenity has nightmares, and she's particularly got this one recurring nightmare with some bizarre imagery in it. She has no idea where this stuff is coming from, but she has it over and over again. So Serenity gets really into horror movies and making horror movies. Her dream is to be a filmmaker and to make her own horror movies. So what she's doing so far is stop action horror movies. And her little brother sometimes helps her. He's very creative, and he will help create the monsters for her movies, like out of paper and craft materials and things like that. So Serenity has a great relationship with her little brother. He's a very quiet person, as are her parents, and they're always telling her to keep the volume down, to quiet down, to not talk so loud. But Serenity is full of enthusiasm and life, so she feels sometimes like kind of a misfit in the family. And then her little brother Peace starts to have nightmares and kind of shuts down. And her parents are really worried. And they announce to Serenity that they're going to take Peace on a 3-week silent retreat on another island, and that Serenity is going to her grandmother's house. And and she's like, "You're going on a vacation without me?" And they kind of make up excuses and say, "Oh, you would hate a silent retreat." But she can't figure out what's going on. So she stows away on the ferry that goes to this island. She's worried about her brother. And yeah, and the story takes off from there. What she discovers on this island, what's really going on there. It is super creepy. Great story for this season. I really enjoyed it, and it was excellent on audio. That's Nightmare Island. Okay, even with trying to keep things quick, that was kind of a long update. But I didn't want to miss the chance to talk about these great books that I finished up October with. I would love to hear what you've been reading. Have you been finishing up your dark, spooky reading for this season? Are you getting ready for Nonfiction November? Please let me know in the comments down below.